Mandalore is a war zone. Bo-Katan, a former member of the Death Watch, now leads a charge to take her homeworld back from the Shadow Collective that runs it. More specifically, the head of the operation, Maul. The fallen Sith used the people of Mandalore as a crutch to rise once more, and was after his killing of Pre Vizsla sometime earlier that she realized his true intentions. Kryze separated herself from Maul and his blinded followers, and now she sets to remove his influence once and for all. Yet she realized that Maul had gathered a large force in his time ruling from the shadows, and what forces she had just weren't going to be enough. She then turned to Ahsoka Tano, who would soon bring assistance from the Republic in the form of half of the remarkable 501st Legion. This detachment showed their commitment to Tano by coloring their helmets to honor her, and though Bo-Katan had mixed feelings about the clones, she respected their allegiance to their commander. That allegiance was certainly going to be put to test, because Mandalorians, though they served the cause that was hidden from them by Maul, were some of the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Maybe it helped that the clones were made from a Mandalorian as well, she thought. Bo-Katan's forces alongside Ahsoka's newly formed 332nd Legion charged across the capital city in what was to be known as the Siege of Mandalore. Ahsoka Tano herself thought she would be alongside Anakin Skywalker. The pair had been reunited for only a short while before she flew here. Anakin and Obi-Wan were called back to Coruscant as the CIS had attacked the capital planet, though she secretly wished Anakin was here to see how much she had grown. She knew eventually he'd get that opportunity. Now, she had to focus on Maul, someone Kenobi warned might be near impossible to kill. The battle that took place was violent, vicious, and unforgiving, though Ahsoka had Captain Rex by her side, and an entire detachment of the 501st putting their faith in her. She would get them through it. Eventually, Tano was alone with the former Sith, yet the shady individual standing before her was not so quick in drawing his blade. He had choice words that he hoped Ahsoka Tano would listen to. Maul dug into a past that Ahsoka had wished to leave behind. He revealed that he was privy to the knowledge that she had been cast out by the Jedi Order, betrayed by those she once trusted. Yet, at the same time, Ahsoka could sense an urgency and unease behind the words he spoke, almost as if the Sith had his mind on two things at once. If this was the case, it would serve as a distraction for him, not her. Though Maul continued with his monologue, alluding the mysterious Sith known as Darth Sidious, for he knows of his former master's plan, while the Jedi and Ahsoka didn't even know who the disturbing individual is. Ahsoka knew this was why she had to capture Maul, no matter what. He knew things that could potentially save the Republic, though now she could sense a dread filling the space between the two of them. Maul revealed that in spite of his hatred for him, he wasn't looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi. His target was the former Padawan of his nemesis, the former master of the lady standing before him. He wanted to kill Anakin Skywalker. That was the most important piece to the plan of Darth Sidious, and he pleaded to Ahsoka in joining him in a plot to put a permanent end to Skywalker. Rage couldn't begin to describe the emotions building within her. She reached for her lightsabers, the very same ones that Anakin had repurposed for her, and took a battle-ready stance. Ahsoka knew tapping into anger was a path to the dark side, yet Maul was testing her patience. "I see the Padawan needs one last lesson," the twisted Zabrak uttered as he activated his lightsaber blade and charged towards Ahsoka. The pair locked in a duel that was a symphony of rage, anger, and fear. The raging battle in the background between their respective armies became nothing more than background noise. Their duel would soon reach the rafters of the dome that encased Mandalore. The precarious battle was nearing an end. Both combatants could feel that. Yet who would be the victor? That was to be decided by the Force. The Force sided with Ahsoka, who thwarted Maul's attempt to escape and held onto him with the Force. The Zabrak began screaming with the calls of a madman, pleading for death in this moment as he feared the events to come. As Republic gunships began to ascend to the duel, Maul yelled out fire to a ship that had came to rescue him. And though Ahsoka was able to save herself from a doom-written fall, her grip on Maul was lost, and so was he to the city below. She looked to one of the gunships and saw that Rex was on board, and it didn't take a connection to the Force for him to see the worry in her eyes. Maul was lost, and with that, the secrets he carried dissipated. Following the apparent death of Maul, Ahsoka regrouped with Bo-Katan and Captain Rex to go over what was to happen next. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't part of the plan. Maul needed to be in Republic hands. Rex showed much disappointment in what had transpired, yet he doesn't put blame on Ahsoka. He saw what happened. He saw Maul shouting a final order that would bring his own death. This is still a victory. That monster is dead, and my people now have the opportunity to rise once more. Bo-Katan admittedly only saw Maul as a menace. He was a leech that bled Mandalore dry during the time he latched on to them. I understand this is a positive for your people, Bo-Katan. The Republic, however, needed Maul alive. Without him, there's probably no chance of saving the Republic. A somber mood filled Ahsoka as her mind wandered to Anakin. She felt an unusual chill as she reached out to feel his presence. She figured that the war was finally getting to him as it was to her. The death, the destruction, it had finally reached a new level of pestilence for her. What do we do now, Commander? We need to contact the Council and tell them what happened to Maul. The men will remain here until you all are assigned elsewhere. Ahsoka had to remember that she wasn't a Jedi, that this was to be her last act as a part of the Clone War. Rex nodded in approval, and they soon made contact with the Jedi Order, who were already meeting and deliberating about the Outer Rim sieges. Mandalore had been placed among this campaign, which proved to be the most destructive era of the war. Jedi Masters and their clone legions were scattered across the galaxy. Master Plo Koon was on Cato Pneumonia, Master Ki-Adi-Mundi was on Magito, Yoda had left for Kashyyyk, and even Obi-Wan was on Utapau. Mace Windu was still on Coruscant, and he took part in a discussion with Masters Yoda, Mundi, and Aayla Secura. Their conversation was put on hold once Ahsoka made contact. Combat on Mandalore has ceased, yet Maul has not been captured. Mace Windu was never careful in his word choice. He was a Jedi whose demeanor matched his strength. His displeasure to the death of Maul was evident. Maul was willing to die, even if it meant avoiding capture. I tried my best, but perhaps it was a mistake sending a citizen to lead an army. Ahsoka looked to see the response from the Masters present, yet they sat silently. Betrayed again, she thought to herself. Did you learn anything at all, young Tano? Despite the lack of respect she felt, Ahsoka informed Master Windu that Maul had made mention of Anakin. Skywalker is here on Coruscant within the temple. Whatever Maul believed, he is wrong. May I be allowed to speak with him, Master Windu? Ahsoka's wish was partly because of Maul's warning, but more so a desire to see her master one last time. I'm afraid citizens aren't allowed direct contact on that level. Your service has been appreciated. The transmission dissipated as Ahsoka turned to Rex, who shared in her feelings of annoyance. You know Master Windu. He's a tough case. You did good, Commander. We all know that. Rex's words meant a lot to Ahsoka, yet she knew they would only mean something for a short time. Thank you, Rex. It looks like I'm not your commander anymore. Ahsoka looked out behind Rex where she could see Bo-Katan starting a cleanup job. I'll ask if there's a spare ship I can use to leave. You best see to your men. With what seemed like parting words, Rex saluted Ahsoka one last time, but she preferred a different form of a so long. She embraced the clone, who fought back tears. Goodbye, Rex. as Ahsoka prepared to set out on her own once more. Hell was taking place on Coruscant. Anakin had learned Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith Lord the Jedi had been concerned about. This led to Master Windu and other Jedi Masters confronting the Chancellor. Windu would be the only one to withstand the onslaught and fight on. Soon, Anakin returned, and Palpatine set the final stage of his plan into motion. The great betrayal had taken place, and Anakin has become Darth Vader. Palpatine's first major decree following his reveal was an order meant to wipe the Jedi from existence.
The time has come. Execute Order 66.
That order was sent across the galaxy to every single clone, and only clones. The Jedi weren't prepared one bit when their clone soldiers turned their blasters on them, even in the heat of battle. It was back on Mandalore, while Ahsoka was prepping her ship, that she heard distant explosions and blaster fire. She ran to see Mandalore in flames yet again. The clones were fighting Bo-Katan's forces, and she couldn't understand what happened. She then heard the familiar voice of a clone shout out, "There's the Jedi! Get her!" The clones were the source of the destruction, but she didn't know why. She leapt away, not too anxious to kill the soldiers that she once admired. She was now in search of Captain Rex. Maybe she could learn something, anything, from him. The galaxy has fallen into chaos. The horrendous events of Order 66 has led to much of the Jedi Order being dwindled to next to nothing in a matter of mere moments. For Ahsoka Tano, she was among the Jedi lucky enough not to be completely caught off guard. She was away from her former clone companions, who were now on a hunt for her, a hunt that was intended to have a fatal outcome. Tano was being chased by her former clones, and it would be a group of Mandalorians who cut off their pursuit, and she soon recognized one of them from the insignia that graced her shoulder. Bo-Katan, Ahsoka thought to herself. Even though she realized they saved her, Ahsoka still cautioned herself. She appeared to have been betrayed by the clones, so she didn't know what to expect of those before her. Bo-Katan soon removed her helmet. She clearly showed fatigue in her expression as she explained what happened that led Mandalore to chaos once more. We were leading civilians to safety when all of a sudden, this chill came over us. Your pal Rex started mumbling something about Fives was right before he pulled his blaster on all of us. Ahsoka knew that name meant nothing to the Mandalorians, but it did mean something to Rex. Curious to what happened next, she asked Bo-Katan to continue her explanation. They were looking for you. Threatened me and my people with treason under the new Galactic Empire, as he called it. If we didn't turn you in, well, you know what happened next. Mandalorians don't bow to anyone. Ahsoka almost couldn't believe what she was hearing. There was so much to think about and grasp in such a short time, though the biggest weight on her shoulder was guilt. The conflict on Mandalore reignited because they were looking for her. Even worse, she had this dreaded feeling that she wasn't the only one that this happened to, and that others must have met a fate much worse. Ahsoka turned to Bo-Katan after a brief moment of thought. What happened to Rex? Do you know? Ahsoka figured that even though he seemed in line with the other clones in this situation, he could still have answers about everything that happened. He crawled away with urgency. He's still out there somewhere. None of their ships have left planet, but that's only because they aim to lock down until they kill you or all of us. Ahsoka soon knew that she was in a race for time to find out what was happening. I need you to rally whatever forces you can. More than likely the command center that's here is still intact, and we'll be able to use it to reach other Jedi. There's no use in contacting the Republic at this point. Though Ahsoka's idea was best for the current situation, Bo-Katan had concerns for the long term. Her people were still being threatened, and this would continue long past Ahsoka's participation in this whole ordeal. Tano fully understood this and promised that once she figured out whatever was happening, she would return in whatever capacity she would be able to, but right now they needed to reach the command center. The pair soon was off, being flanked by other Night Owls, and the battle picked up once more, especially once the clones caught wind of Ahsoka Tano. As the battle towards the command center pressed on, Rex returned to report directly to Emperor Palpatine himself to give an update on Ahsoka Tano. "My lord, Ahsoka Tano was not in our sights at the time of the order, but she has been located. She will be eliminated." Captain Rex felt like a puppet deep down. His true personality had been bogged by the inhibitor chip that practically erased all free thought. Speaking to the Emperor was not Captain Rex, but rather CT-7567 of the 501st Legion. The Emperor had listed Ahsoka as a special target given her close relation to Anakin Skywalker, and having her here on Mandalore with an entire legion of clones was something he didn't expect, yet made his plans that much easier. As CT-7567 ended his transmission with Palpatine, a clone informed Rex that Ahsoka and a gang of Mandalorians were pushing their way to the command center. CT-7567 stared blankly at his fellow clone. "The Jedi will be good as dead by sunrise. Get the defenses ready." The clone nodded as CT-7567 placed his helmet back on and prepared for a confrontation with Ahsoka Tano, which was looking to take place soon. Though she couldn't force the Mandalorians to take non-lethal measures, Ahsoka tried her best to avoid any attacks that would kill her former companions. This strategy took a great deal of concentration, especially in the midst of a battle as large as this one. Every time she incapacitated one, she saw a Mandalorian shoot another one dead. This only added to her drive to end whatever was happening here sooner. Her efforts combined with her allies resulted in them making it to the command center. Yet they knew they wouldn't be alone for long. "I'll head inside and get to the bottom of whatever is going on. They'll send reinforcements soon, so be prepared." Ahsoka entered the base in search of Captain Rex. She was unsettled by the stillness inside. Not many life forms occupied it, save for a few droids that scatter along. She soon found the central communications room, but before she could open the door, she heard the clicking of blasters behind her. "Ahsoka Tano, by order of the Emperor, you have been deemed a traitor to the Empire and must face termination." Rex. Ahsoka slowly turned to see the clone she had grown the closest to, yet she sensed something immensely different in him. Yet he could have fired at any moment, and she knew that something of her old friend was still there. "That name is against regulation." CT-7567 firmly held his blasters, fingers on the triggers, as Ahsoka continued her attempt to reach her old friend. "That name solidifies what you became, who you were. You're more than a number. You're Captain Rex." After a moment of silence, the clone spoke. "Traitor." CT-7567 opened fire on Ahsoka Tano, and soon more clones appeared almost out of nowhere. It was an ambush. Ahsoka deflected as many shots as she could, but soon realized that she was going to be overwhelmed. She escaped via a hole she carved in the ventilation shaft of the base, and now she crawled throughout, trying to figure out what she could do next. If she couldn't get to Rex, the next step would be the Jedi Order, or what was left of it. Even if her relationship with the Order was rocky, the idea that this happened across the galaxy was one that just didn't sit well with Tano. Even worse, she could hear the battle outside had erupted again, meaning reinforcements for the clones had arrived. That meant Bo-Katan wasn't going to be able to assist her inside. Yet she remembered that she had to get to the central communications room, and hopefully get answers about whatever was happening. Following the enactment of Order 66, Ahsoka Tano has found herself the prey of a detachment of clone troopers inside the base she helped establish. The deadly order drove Mandalore into chaos once more as Bo-Katan led her forces against clone attacks. Tano, though, had her mind on the communications room and reaching out to the Republic in hopes of finding anybody and discovering the cause of this mass betrayal. She had made it to the comms room relatively quietly, but still took great care to avoid alerting the clones hunting for her. She raced over the console, trying to establish contact with every Jedi line she could think of. Finally, she remembered an encrypted channel and heard the ever-familiar voice of an old friend once more. An image of Obi-Wan Kenobi lit up the room as she took notice of the grim expression the Jedi Master had. He would explain that the Jedi Order and the Republic have fallen, confirming her worst-case belief that whatever was happening reached across the entire galaxy. She had already felt her heart sink at the moment the clones turned, yet now it felt as though her heart had exited her body completely. Her mind immediately went to Anakin, wondering if he had made it, but attempts to find his presence only failed. She was brought back to her current situation once the message from Kenobi faded and ended. Her next step was clear. She had to make her way off the world and find Obi-Wan. The only thing that could keep that from happening came in the form of an entire battalion of clones looking to kill her, which included CT-7567, who searched the halls of the building, aiming to complete his mission. Ahsoka carefully stepped towards the door, listening for any chatter, and her instincts paid off when she heard the all-too-familiar voices of clones.
Check all rooms immediately. She has to be in here somewhere. So yes, sir.
Ahsoka knew that meant she would have company soon. Yet it was also an opportunity to set a trap of her own. She eyed the communication console where she had played the message of Kenobi and decided to play it once more.
You hear that? It's the comms room. Move.
A pair of clone troopers soon entered the room, moving with extreme caution as they aimed their blaster at every nook where they think the Jedi could have been hiding. Ahsoka, though, was higher than her pursuers, as she had placed herself in the vents that she had entered from. Once the clones had some distance between the two of them, she jumped down and used the power of the Force to slam the clone against the wall, leaving him incapacitated. The other clone's reaction proved to be quicker than she expected as he turned, firing shots at her. She jetted out of the room, knowing that she certainly found herself in a bind. Though only one clone had their sights on her, she knew that eventually he would have backup. The exit to the base was nearby, though even then there would be no rest. Outside, Mandalorians were once again engaged in combat.
This way, brother. The Jedi is here.
The base now lit up as the costly mistake had revealed her position. Ahsoka continued running towards the exit of the building, but now she heard the floor clunking heavily as she turned to see a group of troopers round a corner, aiming their blasters at her.
Take her down.
The hail of blaster fire came barreling through the hallway as Ahsoka did her best to avoid the incoming bolts. Though they were focused on killing her, Ahsoka showed no intent in harming the soldiers that she once served by. Though things took a turn for the worse when she was cut off by another squad of clones, who were led by CT-7567. The blaster fire stopped momentarily as the clones slowly approached, trapping Ahsoka like the prey of a pack of Nexu.
Your immediate extermination has been ordered.
Just as CT-7567 was about to call for all troopers to fire, an explosion rocked the entire building, and behind them, Mandalorians began piling inside. Bo-Katan called for Ahsoka to hurry out while they were slowly beginning the process of exiting. "I thought you were busy outside." Ahsoka certainly didn't expect to have any assistance in this moment, but she was by no means complaining. "If you're looking to get off world, your window is closing. We have to get you out of here." Bo-Katan knew that the Mandalorian resistance was going to be seen as a threat, and fighting on the world would more than likely never cease. Ahsoka could sense this grim thought as she hurried out, only to see how much of Mandalore has fallen now that the clones and its inhabitants had turned their blasters on each other. She remembered the landing pad where she had been prepping to leave before this madness began, and hoped she would still be able to take off without drawing attention of anyone who could stop her. Her escape would bring her to the vessel, a Mandalorian starfighter known as a gauntlet fighter. As its wings towered towards the sky, she boarded, quickly powering on the ship and taking off. As it flew over the battlefield, the only thing protecting her was the smoke billowing from the battles below. As she broke into the atmosphere, her worry for her Mandalorian allies only grew as she bare witness to another Republic Venator arrive from hyperspace. Over the past few years, this sight would have been a relief for so many, but now she knows it only means the arrival of terror. Though she had a new mission now. She had to find her way to Obi-Wan or Anakin. She jettisoned into hyperspace, and as the blue lights illuminated the cockpit, she attempted to reach for her former master, yet again felt nothing. Now, with the only sound filling her ears being the monotoned hum of hyperspace travel, she rested, closing her eyes while the ship traveled its course towards the core worlds. All of a sudden, Ahsoka slipped into darkness as the air around her went cold. She heard a mechanical breathing as she soon found herself in a crumbling temple. She turned to see where the breathing was emanating from, a menacing figure with a crimson blade that started marching towards her. As he swung, the floor beneath the both of them gave out as they both collapsed with it. She was startled back to reality, realizing that she bare witness to a vision of the Force. She couldn't make much of what she saw, but once out of hyperspace, she began reaching out through any communications, hoping to find anyone who could help. After hearing silence for so long, she finally heard the voice of a familiar friend. "Ahsoka, was that you? This is Senator Organa, come in." As his signal came in clearer, Ahsoka felt a weight lift off her shoulder as she responded. "Senator Organa, what's going on? I was betrayed by clones, they..." Yes, I know. This has been a galaxy-wide catastrophe. I've already found Masters Kenobi and Yoda. We're on Coruscant. It'll be dangerous, but meet me here as soon as you can. There are important matters to be discussed. Ahsoka knew returning to the world would be dangerous now more than ever. Nevertheless, she made the trek down to meet with Senator Organa. Ahsoka Tano has found her way back to the world of Coruscant. The city-sprawled planet that was once the beacon of the Republic has now been transformed into the hotbed of the Galactic Empire. All throughout the streets, replays of the Emperor's message to the galaxy are blasted to remind those of his goal for a society that is safe and secure. Though with the clone troopers at their backs, no one feels any ounce of safety. Ahsoka bears her cloak as she traverses the upper levels, headed to the location that Senator Organa had given her. She was stunned to see that it was nothing like the stately residence provided to senators and representatives during any stay here. It was slightly run down, and the man who let her in showed much paranoia in doing so. Though she couldn't blame him for being paranoid, she just wondered why it seemed Bail was. He was headstrong, resilient, and passionate about his stance in the galaxy. It wasn't until she arrived that she realized why the secrecy was being displayed. Sitting in the room was not only Senator Organa, but Mon Mothma from the world of Chandrilla and many other senators from throughout the galaxy, all engrossed in what appeared to be a serious conversation. Yet, it halted at once when their attention turned to Ahsoka. Senator Organa made sure the Jedi felt welcome as he announced her. "My friends, this is one of the Jedi that I was able to establish contact with, Ahsoka Tano. Trust me when I say, she's very capable of..." Ahsoka, as respectfully as she could, interrupted the introduction for Organa. "If I may, Senator, I am no longer a Jedi, and I was hoping to speak with you a second before we get into any of this." Bail turned to his contemporaries, who were all a bit dumbfounded by Ahsoka's request. Bail, nevertheless, honored the young woman as they both stepped aside for conversation. "I'm really sorry, Senator. I don't know what's happening here, but I can tell you exactly what's happening here. These were all senators who feared what Palpatine had been doing over the past few years, and what's happening here is vital to saving the Republic we once knew. Bail was completely sold on the idea of uniting the few good souls he trusted to rally against this new empire. Ahsoka, on the other hand, just didn't have it in her to become engrossed in another war, at least not yet. I understand that. Your cause is just. I've seen firsthand what can happen on Mandalore, but I'm in no state to help you. I'm just looking for Anakin or Master Kenobi. Tano hated saying this, as she feared it would come over as her abandoning old friends, but Bail already knew the risk that would come in planning a revolt so soon. No, I understand. I haven't heard anything from Anakin, sadly, though I had established contact with Master Kenobi. Bail then leaned in closer, evident that what he was about to say was far more secretive than anything else. He's gone to see Padme. Something was clearly weighing heavy on his heart. Ahsoka took a step back as she realized this had to be about Anakin. Thank you, Senator. Maybe one day I'll join you. But right now, I understand. I wish you luck in your journey, my friend. May the Force be with you. Senator Organa stepped away as he once again enveloped himself in the conversation among his fellow senators. Ahsoka watched as she exited, stunned to see what the galaxy was starting to become. Now she made her way to where Padme lived, assuming that Obi-Wan had already made it there. She felt this trembling begin inside her, based in complete fear of Anakin's whereabouts. She couldn't sense him, and so far no one had seen her former master since the apparent fall of the Republic. She prayed to whatever entity listened that Obi-Wan would have some answers. When she arrived, she saw that Obi-Wan was already speaking to the former Queen of Naboo, who she noticed was pregnant. She couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, but could feel the immense weight of their conversation. Soon, Padme collapsed in tears as Obi-Wan made way to a shuttle that was docked on the balcony. She shouted, "Wait!" as both Obi-Wan and Padme turned to see the former Padawan of Skywalker. Padme, who appeared to be completely distraught, exited as Ahsoka attempted to console her, but Obi-Wan advised against it. She's just learned a terrible truth. I fear it's also what you're searching for. Obi-Wan watched over the city skyline as Ahsoka said exactly what he expected. Where's Anakin? Those words pierced his heart as he found himself having to explain yet again to someone who cared for his Padawan deeply. There was an attack at the Jedi Temple. Master Yoda and I ventured there in hopes of finding survivors. If not survivors, at least some answer to what has happened. I found some answers, but it only brought pain. Did Anakin survive? Was he at the temple? Ahsoka. Anakin led the attack. He's fallen to the dark side. I've seen it all happen. Ahsoka froze. Her heartbeat slowed as shock filled every inch of her person. Anakin Skywalker, the one person who she trusted more than anyone, had turned to the dark side. This must be wrong. Where is he? I felt the same as you. But there is no hope. I haven't a clue where he is, but I do have an idea. Ahsoka was set to ask what his idea was, but she gathered some inklings about exactly what that plan of his entailed. Senator Amidala, I saw she's pregnant. That means Anakin is the father. She had the smallest inkling of happiness that was greatly overshadowed by disappointment and regret. A regret for leaving Anakin a year ago. You think she knows where Anakin is? I do, but I can't let her know what I'm set to do. What exactly are you set to do? Ahsoka eased this question out. I'm sure you already know the answer. We must destroy the Sith now, even though I fear it may be too late. Master Yoda is on his way to face Sidious now. Ahsoka stood silent for a moment, then spoke. I'm going with you. You aren't ready for this. Your relationship with Anakin would cloud your judgment, and yours wouldn't. Ahsoka snapped back. She was determined to bring her master back into the light. Obi-Wan knew that Ahsoka wasn't going to relent on this. He nodded his head in approval as the pair set out to find Anakin by means of his concerned, terrified wife. The galaxy has truly taken a turn for the worse. The past few days have seen the numbers of the Jedi Order reduced to almost nothing, with a few stragglers roaming throughout the galaxy, doing all they can to survive. Among them is Ahsoka Tano. The journey she found herself on following the enactment of Order 66 was one filled with heartache. She saw Mandalore fall into war once more, Bail Organa planning a rebellion against the Empire, and then she learned the horrible truth. Her master, Anakin Skywalker, had fallen to the dark side. In doing so, the man she once knew had gone, and in his place, Darth Vader had risen. Nothing seemed right. Tano couldn't begin to believe that Anakin would fall so far from the light. Yet it was Obi-Wan himself who informed her of the terrible events leading up to it, and now the pair set out to confront their old friend one more time. The plan that Obi-Wan had hatched was simple, even if it felt morally wrong to do. He knew if anybody had the slightest clue where his former Padawan had went, it would be Padme. The relationship between the two was meant to be secret, but the love they shared proved to be far too much to hide from a select few. Ahsoka herself had been inquisitive about the relationship between Anakin and Padme, but now was not the time to relish on old memories of the two together. Come, she's leaving. This is our time. Obi-Wan motioned forward as he headed to the chrome-plated ship that Padme flew. Ahsoka followed right behind as the two of them took refuge in a storage compartment towards the rear. Ahsoka could feel her heart sink as she could faintly hear crying, and soon realized that it was Padme who began shedding tears. She knew that Obi-Wan was here to kill what Anakin had become, but could there be another way? As far as she knew, not many individuals who had fallen to the dark side could escape its clawing entrapment, though Anakin was much different than anyone before. He was thought to be the chosen one after all. She then whispered to Obi-Wan, trying her hardest not to alert Padme that her journey to Anakin was not a lonesome one. Master Kenobi, are you sure this is right? What if we can save him? Ahsoka knew where this train of thought had came from. It was the result of spending almost 3 years of tutelage under Anakin. He was meant to be her master, but he grew to be the brother she never had, yet needed. I know the feeling you have about this, for I have it too. Obi-Wan seemed to have sensed a weakness brewing within himself, speaking on this. I've seen what he's done already. He's killed Shaak Ti, Sindralik, and the younglings. Saying that brought much discomfort for Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, but Kenobi pulled himself back into focus. As much as we both don't want to believe it, Anakin is gone. This Darth Vader has taken his place. Ahsoka raised her hand respectfully, showing that she understood, but also signaling that she didn't want to hear the rest of this conversation. She only closed her eyes, finding time to meditate before their arrival to wherever they were headed. Their destination would be the lava-stricken world of Mustafar. It was here where Darth Vader received the important, though easy task of dispatching what remained of the leaders of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. When he landed, there was no struggle of getting inside, as they were expecting his presence per word of Darth Sidious himself. Once inside, he caged them in like hopeless rats as he cut his way through each and every one of them. He felt great pleasure at every scream that was yelped out as a result of his blade piercing flesh. He did wage a war against these men for the past few years, and now he was officially bringing it to an end. He had just gave the shutdown order for all battle droid units across the galaxy when a new ship came into the view of the scanners. The darkness within him seemed to lift ever so slightly once he saw what ship it was. It belonged to his wife, the mother of his soon-to-be-born child, Padme Amidala. He didn't even begin to think what she was doing here. He rushed to the landing pad where the ship touched down. Inside the ship, Padme gathered herself, with the knowledge of everything that Anakin had been doing running laps around her mind like the father years of Canto Bight. She exited at once and ran down to see what her husband had become. Once they realized that Padme had cleared the ship, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka relieved themselves with their hiding compartment. Ahsoka peered out the viewing port where she could barely see Anakin standing there, his eyes as yellow as the rivers of lava that boiled beneath them. She was frozen. She could see that for a moment, Anakin was happy to see his wife. But something changed. His joy switched to anger, and a small distance was created between the two of them. She then saw something she would have never dreamed of. Anakin reached out with his hand, wielding the power of the dark side to harm Padme. She turned to tell Obi-Wan, but noticed he was already gone. He had stepped down to confront his former apprentice, and for a moment, Ahsoka debated with herself if this was really where she was meant to be. She stepped closer to the exit ramp of the ship, and now she could hear the war of words between Anakin and Obi-Wan. "I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire." Those words coming from the mouth of her master was enough to shatter all hope within her, but she couldn't remain on the sideline any longer. She stepped from the ship, and with all the strength she could muster, she yelled out, "Master!" "Ahsoka, what are you doing here? This has nothing to do with you." It was almost as if Anakin had written her out of everything, not because he had forgotten about her. There was a different reason for this. "I'm here because I couldn't believe all I heard was true. My master could never do anything like that." "Don't be fooled by what they've told you. They have all betrayed me." Anakin's yellow eyes returned to Ahsoka's focus, and they were centered on her. "Anakin, I won't betray you. But this isn't you." She looked to Padme, who laid unconscious on the ground while Obi-Wan started to tend to her. "Ahsoka, don't betray me. Not again." Again? Ahsoka quickly realized that Anakin was referring to when she left the Jedi Order some time earlier. She was shocked and offended. She had assumed Anakin understood why she left, but now it was clear. Anakin was no longer there. "It seems you've made your choice." Anakin was poised to take a battle-ready stance as Ahsoka prepped herself for the onslaught assault to come. She briefly turned to Obi-Wan. "Get her to safety. I can handle this." "Ahsoka, this isn't wise." Obi-Wan started to rise, but Ahsoka signaled to him that this was the choice that she was making. Obi-Wan took Padme up in his arms and took her back to the ship. As Ahsoka turned back to Anakin, she heard his saber activate as he rushed towards her. She barely had time to activate her own sabers as the triplet of blue-hued blades clashed. Sparks flew as Ahsoka kicked off Anakin, and it was here that she started to see just how different their styles actually were. Anakin rushed her at a speed where all she could see was a blue wall of light. Each swing was so powerful that it felt like he could actually cut through the blade itself if he continued. She had to create some sort of separation as she took the fight within the corridors of the facility, though once again, Anakin's speed was a hindrance, and she was limited within the confines of the Mustafarian facility. But there was an opening. Ahsoka spotted the control system for the lava, and knew that this could serve as an opening. She took the fight over to the console, and in an instant, where Anakin prepped for another attack, she swung her second saber behind her, and the alarm that filled the air was a sign that whatever she had hoped for was beginning to happen. As the duel between Anakin and Ahsoka dragged on, Obi-Wan inside the ship did all he could to help Padme. She was soon responsive again, though it was clear she was far from 100%. Obi-Wan, where's Anakin? Padme's weakened breath was troubling to Kenobi, and before he could answer, a sound that mirrored that of an artillery strike grabbed his attention. He rushed to the viewport to see that the lava rivers had become festering much more than when they had arrived, even some pockets jettisoning into the air and landing on the walkways. He knew the ship wasn't safe here as he rushed back inside. He spied C-3PO and requested his assistance. 3PO, we must prepare the ship for launch. It's all safe here. The protocol droid joined him at the cockpit as it slowly rocked and swayed up from its position. All the while, Anakin and Ahsoka now found themselves outside, where Ahsoka found more footing in her fight against her former master. Even with the impromptu geysers of lava that erupted, raining specks of the burning substance down, forcing them to find cover at times. Master Kenobi, look, there! Thanks to an alert from C-3PO, Obi-Wan spied a trio of blue sabers clashing amidst the rising levels of lava. I need you to hold the ship steady, 3PO. We have to get Ahsoka out of here. Obi-Wan made his way to the exit hatch as he watched over the duel between his old friends. Ahsoka soon spied the crone ship flying overhead as she began to realize what was happening. Her plan to destroy the lava console revealed just how unstable the entire planet was. It was practically erupting in symphony with Anakin as the pair stood silent for one another. It didn't have to be this way, Master. This wasn't who you were meant to be. Ahsoka tried one more time to plead with what possibly remained of Anakin Skywalker. This is the way it must be. Then we have all failed. The pair locked in duel once more as the lava nicked away at the platform that they found themselves on. Ahsoka knew that she had to wait for the perfect moment to reach the ship that Obi-Wan waited for her on, and it came. Eventually, the lava had saturated the structure of the facility so much that it began to give way. Anakin was thrown off base, and so was Ahsoka momentarily. But once Anakin caught wind of what she was attempting to do, he pressed harder, even as the bridge structure creaked under their feet. In what seemed like the penultimate moment, Ahsoka was pressed down, brought to a knee as Anakin drove his saber down across the X formed by Tano's blades. Ahsoka held on with everything she could. Soon, a gigantic wave of lava emerged. Both Tano and Skywalker dodged in opposite directions as the lava coated where they once stood. The side where Anakin stood began to finally give way as it started to succumb to the pressure. Ahsoka wished she could save him, but the structure plummeted down to the lava below, and for a moment, she couldn't find her master. There was a stillness before the ship with Obi-Wan came from above into view. Once on board, she looked down to see if she could spot her master one last time, and there he was, set atop the structure that had just become detached from the main facility. Anakin watched as the ship flew away. To where? He had no idea. The ship soon found its way to an asteroid facility called Polis Massa. Bail Organa waited with Master Yoda, who also failed in his efforts to stop Darth Sidious on Coruscant. Medical droids were tending to Padme while they all watched on. One of the droids approached with startling news. Padme Amidala was carrying twins, and they had to be delivered immediately, as Padme herself was dying. There was no explanation as to why, but Ahsoka knew. A broken heart, she whispered to herself as the droid returned back to his patient. Obi-Wan would join in helping with the birth, as Ahsoka couldn't find the strength to be there in that moment. She stepped away, only returning to learn that the children had been born, yet Padme only lived long enough to name them. Not long after, she joined Bail, Yoda, and Obi-Wan in discussions to see what was to happen next. The obvious point of conversation was the children. The idea was proposed to split them up. Is that really so wise? Ahsoka knew saying that was dangerous, for this was an idea that even Master Yoda agreed with. If the Sith are so powerful, then the children should be raised to stop them, not split up and kept a secret. If the Sith found out they exist, they'll surely come looking for them. Obi-Wan advised caution in Ahsoka's risky suggestion. Then I'll make sure they don't. Ahsoka, what are you suggesting? Soon everyone had their gaze on the Togruta. I'll take the children and raise them. I owe Anakin that much. There was a silent debate amongst everyone as they shot glances at one another. Soon, Yoda nodded in agreement as Bail made his exit. Ensure their safety, Ahsoka Tano. They are the only hope this galaxy has. I promise, they'll be safe, and they'll be ready.